Guru Nation, you heard it here first. I'm a real site owner. I have to go to City Hall and pay a bill old-fashioned way. I think City Hall in Yuma, we do things the old-fashioned way. They're right next to the Milkman, I believe. City Hall, where you go pay your bill. I'm here with Daniel in the studio. Daniel, the unexpected pods are the best, man. And we got the Brad Hightower shirt, which I wore like totally random today. And it's Ted Williams. For those that don't know, he's the greatest hitter of all time, possibly. Clinical research is the only field of endeavor where a man can succeed 3 times out of 10 and be considered a good performer. Of course, Brad is very sarcastic because in baseball, that's Hall of Fame numbers. The topic is, I asked Chris, actually. I said, Chris, what's a good topic? I'm going unexpected, man. And Chris said, the type of person you need to do business development for your site. So I can go in depth on this, and I'm also going to relate it to a little bit of how to, but a little bit of like why and who, more of like philosophical. I've been in a philosophical mood for about a year. So first of all, what is business development for your site? Well, it's primarily to get studies for your site. You need a good study pipeline, but it's also getting physicians and getting the community interested. So business development in general means bringing business to your site. So in the case of research, it's obviously bringing studies to your site, because without studies, there's no patients to enroll. But it also could be bringing physicians. And I think the personality of who you want to hire is important, because Chris and I have clients in our network. By the way, we help sites get studies all the time. We do the initial business development. Even if you hire us, you would still need somebody to do this for you. This is the part people don't understand. You cannot just outsource this completely. You need to have somebody in-house, whether that's yourself as the site owner, which I do recommend that being you for the initial year, as long as you can, really. It's still me at my site, Yuma Clinical Trials. To this day, I think we're in year 4, Daniel, if I'm not mistaken. I've been working with Daniel for 2 years now. So I've been working with Daniel half of that time. Daniel, you haven't seen me in the first half of that time. That was the struggle. We were in the trenches. It's been me until today even. Now I do outsource some of it to my staff. So I have 4 pretty competent coordinators, and I entrust them all with different levels of business development, particularly getting studies. And I believe they all do a good job. And I'm kind of experimenting to see who has natural affinities for it and who doesn't. There are elements of biz dev that are obviously getting the interest from the sponsor. That's 90% of the issue. But then the remaining 10% is like really nuts and bolts, nitty gritty. Do the feasibility questionnaires, do the CDA, assess the protocol with the PI. It takes a certain type of person. And I think, again, the site owner or the site director should be the one doing it until you develop a training system for your staff, or maybe just one staff member, or maybe it's going to be you all the time. Although if you're like me, I try to replace myself in every aspect that I can. The one part that's not replaced is obviously these videos. People have grown to be accustomed to the brand of me and Guru Nation and all that, but that's not really part of the site, but it is. It does benefit Yuma Clinical Trials that I do these videos. There have been studies I have received because of these videos. There's probably studies that I haven't received that I'll never know about because of these videos. So it's a double-edged sword. But my philosophy is try to replace myself in every aspect of the business that I can at the site, or that I want to. And I truly want a fully autonomous site with very little involvement from me. Is it that way now? No. Am I way less involved today than I was in year one? Absolutely. And I think that's part of all these videos, the video series. If you click on the playlist of my site journey and how I'm documenting my site journey, it's a work in progress from startup to either acquisition by a private equity or rolling into a site network or starting a site network or just maintaining it once it reaches a certain level where I don't think it's worth growing anymore. You'll get to watch the journey. But my role personally will evolve. But I'm still doing biz dev, although I am starting to let some of my staff do it. I do think there comes a point where your core functions at the site can be centralized and streamlined. We operate under a generalist philosophy at the site where the coordinators pretty much do everything: recruitment, regulatory, source, QA, biz dev, really everything. Of course, everyone has their own affinities, what they're good at. So in the case of biz dev, which I'm focusing the video on today, you do need somebody who's influential or has the power of persuasion, and you do need somebody who's somewhat outgoing and somebody who is not afraid to do the reaching out. So we just came back from Save Our Sites conference, and I went with one of my coordinators, Luis, and I went with my nurse practitioner business partner, Jaime Valles, and we did business development there. We met other site owners. We discussed what studies are going on without getting into study specifics or proprietary information. We just discussed, hey, this sponsor has an interesting trial for this indication. And we're not going to, obviously, we can't give you all the secrets, but you can contact them and see if they're interested in more sites. Or I'm happy to make an introduction to your site. Could you do the same for me with one of your sponsors? And this is the business development role. There's the more mature site networks, they have people go to conferences year round to do just this: meet sponsors, meet medical science liaisons, meet the sponsor. Every sponsor now, or the majority of sponsors, have site outreach teams that are trying to find sites. At our conference at SOS this year, we had Takeda, we had Eli Lilly, we had AbbVie, and we had Alto Neurosciences that I was aware of. There might have been more, but these are the ones that I was aware of, where those sponsors came up to me and said, hey, we'd love an introduction to some of your colleagues that own other sites, specifically colleagues that have, XYZ experience or are located in communities with XYZ demographics. So you're a networker also when it comes to being business development. There's a Yiddish term for it called mensch, somebody that likes to connect people together. I actually enjoy that. I enjoy connecting people with other people that I think will have value from each other. I don't like to spam in real life and just introduce everyone I know to everyone I meet. I think that's real world spamming. But I think being a business development person or whomever you're going to hire at your site needs to be a natural networker, or at least have the traits, the personality traits, to have a chance at being a legitimate networker. And you don't have to just network at conferences. You can network remotely. So you can go on LinkedIn and find people, find other coordinators perhaps. So one of my coordinators, Lana Stevens, she is a natural at this. She's probably most similar to my personality. Not probably, she is the most similar to my personality as anyone at my site. That's a good and a bad thing because I know all her weaknesses as well, but I know all her strengths, and she's, no surprise, very good at networking with people and very good at patient recruitment. And she's very outgoing. She's an extrovert. So she's going to an investigator meeting, and she's not really my biz dev person. I told you I haven't outsourced that yet. That's still me. But I'm starting to train my staff. So Lana's going to an investigator meeting, and I told her, hey, of course you got to go learn, the protocol and all that. But while you're there, network with your peers from other sites. Share best practices. How can you do better at the study that you're there for? But also try to find out what other studies are going on. Oh, I didn't know there's a social anxiety disorder study. Awesome. Do you know if that sponsor's needing more sites? Oh, that would be amazing if you can introduce. And then we have a few studies too. Oh, you want other therapeutic areas? We're multi-therapeutic site. Maybe we can introduce you to someone as well. Someone needs to be doing this constantly at your site. When they go to investigator meetings, when they go to conferences, when they're on LinkedIn, when they are talking to sales reps that come into your site, a lot of the community clinics that I know, my own included, have pharmaceutical sales reps coming in on a weekly basis, sometimes daily basis, to talk to their physicians. Your business development person needs to be there as often as possible. I know for a fact I am missing out on opportunities, me personally, by not being at my physician's private practices on a daily basis. And because I don't have a full-time business development person and my coordinators have other things they have to do as well, I cannot expect my coordinators to do this on a daily basis. So I know that there are sales reps coming in and out of my PI's private practices that we are not getting a hold of the medical science liaisons. Now I try to overcome that by talking to each of my PIs. Hey, whenever you see a rep from this company come in, let me know. Or when you have them scheduled, let me know. I will try to be there to do some business development and get more studies. That is what you need to be doing as well. This is a full-time job. And when you're a site owner, because I recommend the site owners do this in the startup phase, you have multiple full-time jobs, and this is just one of the full-time jobs. You will never work harder and for less pay than you do when you work for yourself in the first year that you're in business. And I'm still doing this to this day. Now we're making money, we're generating funds, but I still haven't outsourced the business development, partially because I like it and partially because we're not at scale yet to justify a full-time biz dev person. So I'm doing the majority of it, but then my coordinators are also doing a good amount of it. And then my nurse practitioner business partner, Jaime Valles, is also starting to do biz dev for us as well, because he's starting to learn the business as well. So you need somebody that is on top of it, that is proactive, that is ideally an extrovert, that is a networker, that is an excellent communicator, that doesn't take no for an answer, that doesn't feel embarrassed about what will this person think if I'm reaching out. No, none of that stuff. You need to go out there and do this kind of stuff. And yes, it's weird when a sales rep come to your doctor office and you ask the sales rep, hey, who's your medical science liaison? They might be taken aback, like, well, nobody ever asks me this, but what do you do? Oh, we do research with Dr. So-and-so, and we would like to have an introduction because we would like to start doing studies with your company. And the big pharma are very receptive to this. It may take a long time to develop. Things don't happen overnight, but you start planting seeds, and within months, sometimes many months, sometimes years, the seeds start to sprout, and sometimes they don't. And that's okay. You don't expect them all to sprout and produce. There's some initiatives, You're going to be farming, planting all these seeds. They don't all grow. But this is what business development is. Now, I've seen sites from my and Chris's client network. I just talked to one recently where the site owner is less involved. So they're kind of like me. I'm less involved in the actual operations, but I'm still fully involved in the biz dev, but they're less involved in everything. And they have their coordinator doing a bunch of things and doing biz dev, and there is a palpable drop off in studies that they're getting. And they're surprised, and it's like, what's the surprise? Like, I'm an outsider. I can see clearly what's going on. Your coordinator was not properly trained. They may not have the right personality to be biz dev. Not every coordinator has the right personality. You can train them, which was not happening in this case. And they're wondering why the studies are falling off. Well, how many sales reps are you talking to and asking to introduce to the medical science liaison? Are you following up with the medical science liaison? Are you networking with other sites across the country? Are you going to conferences? Are you going to investigator meetings where you're networking with the other sites? The answer to all this stuff was no. Well, of course, there is not one thing that took your study pipeline off a cliff. It was a collection of everything that kind of led to that. So you've got to mind your business development. Even when you hire a group like ours, we do the initial reaching out. We'll give you what's called study leads. Sometimes we get sponsors saying, hey, please let your sites know about whoever's interested in this particular study to reach out to us. Those are the easy leads to get studies for, of course. The harder leads are the cold leads, where no one's expecting you to email them, but you do anyways. And you don't just email them. You find the relevant people on LinkedIn and you message them. And this takes persistence, because similar to this shirt, maybe this shirt was like serendipity that I wore it. It says 3 out of 10 is considered good. I think in business development, 1 out of 10 is considered amazing. So I have zero expectations when I send as a business development person working on behalf of my site. I have zero expectations. I usually think nothing will happen from this, and I will continue to follow up 3 times per person, especially if I really want the study, I go to another person at that company and I try to find another way to get around. Or I try to find out, well, who's the CRO for this? Maybe I need to get in with the CRO. Or who's at the sponsor for this study? Or what are other sites that I know that I could find out who's kind of doing this study and who I need to get a hold of? That's persistence. A coordinator who's busy screening and randomizing and answering queries may understandably put this activity on the back burner, which is why business development is not something that can be put on the back burner, because as soon as you do, you won't notice the effects right away. But in about 6 months, 12 months, you're like, hey, where's all my studies? What happened to my pipeline? Now you really need studies, and now you might get into some issue where you need to hire a study broker, which I hate, by the way. But they are getting some that are, I guess, better, but I don't think you need a study broker. I think you need to have business development going on. It's just better for your site in general to be networking. So going to conferences, you do much more at these conferences than network anyways. You learn a lot, you meet people, you learn best practices, you get things, you understand where the industry's headed, you put faces to names. But you also do business development and start networking and getting studies. I think it's very important. So sites, especially the early on, they try to, like the site owner tries to outsource this, make it passive. It's not passive. There's nothing passive about building and growing a site. And especially when you're in new therapeutic areas, it's like having a new startup. Like, let's say your site's been around for, like mine, 4 years. We've never done nephrology at my site. I have a nephrologist that I need to get studies for. I have 0 studies for her, and I have 0 in the pipeline for her, actually. I had 1. They turned us down, which was unfortunate. But I have to treat that. If I'm serious about getting that PI studies, I have to treat that business, that therapeutic area, like a startup within the context of my site. So I just know if I put more effort into it, I can find a nephrology study. And then it's a balance game between opportunity costs, and everyone reaches some kind of limit. And one of the panelists at SOS, David LaHaye, shout out to him, he said it best. He said the ceiling for growth is complexity. And this is true because I have different therapeutic areas. A lot of the studies now, the beauty is once you build a reputation for your PI and your therapeutic areas, the studies kind of start coming passively, so you can kind of put less effort into, I say kind of, put less effort into the biz dev of those therapeutic areas and focus on new ones. But if those start drying up and you have new ones to worry about, now you're just getting a lot more complexity into the algorithm, and you need a system. You need a sophisticated system. This is why I love the sponsor of this podcast, Inato. Inato's an amazing tool where you can get studies for your site. This is why I love our other sponsor, Creo. Creo is starting to promote their own sites that use Creo to sponsors. It's in the early days of that. This is why I created my consulting company, DSCS, that helps sites with study leads and getting the initial word out about those sites. But you've got to figure out that complexity. Because if you want to grow to the next level, you got to solve complex problems. And they get more and more complex once you shatter through those ceilings. Then you see another ceiling, and it really never ends. Now, this is why site networks consolidate, and then they centralize all these departments. And at some point, it makes sense to have a business development team, a contracts and budgets team, which, by the way, I will do the same video. What kind of person do you need? This one is what kind of person do you need for biz dev, and then why and how to do certain things in biz dev for your site. I'm going to do the same video, a 4-part series, one on recruitment. This is the one on biz dev, one on recruitment, one on contracts and budgets, and one on operations. And we'll probably get into more, but I thought this was an important podcast, something I've never done, something I don't think anyone's discussed. I don't even think anyone's discussed on the panels. This might even be worth an article. Like, subscribe, comment, share. Thank you so much for watching. Bye-bye. Hey, if you guys like that kind of content, make sure you like, subscribe, comment, share. Stay tuned for more videos.